Good evening, gentle listener, and welcome to Distractible. This episode, Moneyed Mark comes out for AAA creators, knocks Nintendo, and comes up random. Blighted Bob is still sicky, balks at buying unfinished BS, and suggests more festies. Wealthy Wade rejects evil and goes into exile, argues the nickels and dimes, and gets into grannies. From single sausage orgies to Hogwarts hand cannons. Yes! It's time for Insert Topic Here. Now sit back and prepare to be distracted and enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to Distractible. My name is Markiplier and I'm going to be your host for today. I traveled in for this episode. I made a long, extensive journey to be here because there was a podcast emergency in that we needed to record this podcast. And what podcast is that?
Is it just Distractible still?
That's correct! 1 point to Bob.
Oh,
you
thank
get
God.
the Distractible point.
Is this a quiz episode? Hang on. Let me pull up Google.
I'm going to write down this answer. What podcast? Distractible.
What podcast is this?
I'm not going to be fooled again.
Yeah, it'll come back up. End of the episode, I'll ask it again. But this is the podcast where we make up everything as we go, and the hosts change out, and new bullshit comes every week. If you don't like this week's episode, next week's going to be even better.
We do 2 a week.
Yeah, we do 2 a week. Some people don't know that.
They probably don't follow us, so they don't get the notifications. If you followed it, they'd tell you.
Yeah, ring that pot. Ring that pot. What do you do on Spotify?
Just click the button. You're going to have to swipe down to get the full video of the episode down a little bit. But if you go find that follow button, you'll know anytime we get there. And then we look really good in Spotify's eyes, and then they will give us a lot of money.
Bags.
And that won't benefit you at all. It'll benefit us.
Yes, it will. You'll know that your lowercase g gods are doing a lot better than they were before.
For every bag of money we get, we'll put a portion of that towards the production value of this show. Right?
Thought I had no water. I'm good.
Give you a water point.
Hydrated. Stay hydrated out there.
Bob, do you have water?
I have 2 drinks, and neither of them is water, but they're hydrational.
Oh, no.
They're zero sugar sport drinks.
Nope. Doesn't count.
They sound like water.
Hydrogen sulfide probably sounds a lot like water too, but I don't think you should drink that.
I think if you got hydrogen sulfide in your mouth, it would not sound like you were drinking water. It might for the first moment, and then you'd be a lot of oh, God, and then death or something, whatever happens.
What was the movie where there was I think it was Spy, and it was the guy who played the tall, goofy guy in The Office drank acid, and as he's dying and his throat's melting, he's like, flipping the bird. That's very funny. We stand by everything that we say on this podcast, just like we're going to stand by whatever Bob and Wade are going to say in this small talk today.
Uh-huh.
Woo!
Let's go first. First person loses a point.
Oh, I'll go first.
Jumped on.
Well, listen.
All right, -1 for Bob. First.
I feel like I've been saying this forever. Still sick. Luckily, I'm doing better, but unluckily, Mandy did way worse this past week. Literally multiple nights where she couldn't even sleep because coughing constantly for hours and hours at a time. But beyond the endless misery that Mandy is currently enduring, we had our first snow, our first real snow enough in Cincy where it was stuff was covered and it looked white outside. It had snowed before that, but it's always nice that morning when you wake up and you look out and you're like, oh, it's like Christmas.
That's lovely. We didn't get any of that here.
I think if it snowed where you are, that would be a bad sign in general for the way things are going in the world.
I'll give you a point for being sick, but this will be the last week that counts.
I never want to talk about it again. I feel like I've gotten my sickness out for the next decade. Let's move on with this.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Wade, you sick?
No.
I do have to remove my Diablo crown, which I love and treasure dearly. But I got to put on my Path of Exile 2 crown.
You mean other Diablo?
Diablo 4 is they reached a good peak there for a while. I was telling you guys, man, the game's really fun, and it's not necessarily gone way downhill, but it kind of at least plateaued and drifted down a tiny bit. Path of Exile, they've been killing it for years. I mean, since Diablo 3 came out, Path of Exile 1's been killing it. Path of Exile 2 early access came out, and the game's going to be free right now. You can pay $30, which is a high point, I'll grant. for early access for like 6 months or a year, whatever it is. But man, is it fun. Man, is it challenging. Man, do they listen to the community. I was telling you guys before the stream, like the game has been out less than a week as of us recording this. They've had so many patches and updates, and they had a big old patch after the first weekend. They were like, hey, we've been taking in your feedback. Here's why we're doing this. Here's why we're not doing that. We understand how you feel about this. We'll see what we can do, but we don't want to go overboard and blah, 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 blah. And just like, I don't know. It's been so refreshing. It's been fun. And it doesn't feel like they're letting their ego get in the way like my first love Diablo sometimes does. And I don't know, I've just been having a really good time with it, and it hurts me because I want to like Diablo more. But Diablo, I think they let out a tweet at just the worst time where they're like, what if we start calling ARPGs Diablo-likes, while they were kind of losing the battle? And it's like, that's a bold take right now.
That's just flailing. That's just searching for any attention they could muster.
Yeah, and they got it. I mean, granted, they got it, but I don't know, man. I do love both games, but man, even in early access with half the weapons not in the game, like some of the classes not in the game, bugs and crashes and whatnot, like the, early access issues, which I'm not a big fan of early access. Let me be clear. I think early access is a bit of an annoying scam, but it's the game and everyone's got to play it. So that's where we're at. But even in that state, it's good. It's fun. It's challenging. I didn't think I would like it because I'm not big on the Dark Souls feel of like hopelessness walking into a boss fight and just being like, take my sword. 1/1000th of its health bar went down. It hits you once. 3/4 of your health bar went down. That feeling is not usually very good for me, but something, I don't know, something about this works and it feels good.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you found something other than hopeless. I gave you a Diablo 2 point.
Yeah, I didn't break up with Diablo first, so I'm kind of feeling a little scummy. They're both aware of each other, right? Like, I've been honest.
Honest, just not all the way honest.
Honest, I don't think that qualifies as honest point.
Honest, just not like...
Just not truthful? Or...
Well, no, they both know what I'm doing.
Honest, but not forthcoming? No, something you mentioned, since this is a gaming podcast, something you mentioned, I'm surprised companies don't do more. And I don't know the full extent, but you said that they acknowledged things that they didn't do, that literally the Path of Exile devs were like, well, this is why we're not doing that. Sorry, guys. I don't get why more companies don't do that. Blizzard and Diablo 4 team is a little egotistical and they think they know best. But there are lots of companies who do a really good job of addressing the community. And even the good ones will often just, if they're not going to do something that a lot of the community is asking about or asking for, they'll just ignore it. And like, they'll be like, we're doing this. And everyone's like, what about this thing we always ask for? If the company, even if they just said, we're not doing that because we don't like that as a thing for our game, and we're just choosing not to do that. Yeah. We could, but we don't want to. We're making that choice. I feel like people would respect that. And I'm just surprised that companies still haven't learned, or game devs still haven't learned, the people shouting in your community would be just as happy if you told them no and told them why as if you did exactly what they thought they wanted you to do. They just want to be heard. And I'm just like, that's not a hard lesson to learn, but companies and game devs still just like ignore the parts. They put blinders on. They're like, we answered your concerns. We're doing this thing. And no, you didn't ask for anything else, right? Okay, good. Just say we don't want to do that, or we can't because we don't have enough money, or whatever. Like, people would respect that, I think.
Honesty and transparency would go a long way. Transparency, rather. Like, I don't want Diablo to be Path of Exile. I want to make that clear. Like, I don't want Diablo to all of a sudden be like, well, we need Dark Souls style combat. I love Diablo's combat the way it is. I think it's fine to have two ARPGs with one being a little bit like just go and be God, and one be a little bit more like you're really the underdog in every fight you get into. Like, I'm fine with both styles. That's not the issue. The issue is when Diablo 4 came out, so many quality of life things that were in 3, even just having like a variety of types of goblins, the portal to the goblin realm, a pet to pick up your gold. They have added that sense, but just like some of the quality of life stuff that was in 3, they're like, nobody wants that. They don't want quality of life. What they want is what came out in 1998. Everyone loved Diablo 2. Let's give them the no quality of life features and a worse Diablo 2. And it's like, no, that's not it either. That wasn't the answer. So quality of life is fine. And even if they missed the mark with what they were originally going for, it just feels like they drew a line in the sand and they were like, this is our game. We're doing what we want with it. And then they're still slowly bringing in all of those things as people are leaving. And it's like, just admit it that you guys missed the mark. And like Bob's saying, be transparent about it, make some changes, make the right adjustments, and don't feel like Path of Exile, one of the devs I think said something like, we understand understand that people get burnout. We don't expect you to log in and play our game and only our game every day, 7 days a week. Play our game, have fun with it, do what you do, take a break, come back, that's fine. Whereas a lot of games are designed to be like, you don't want to miss your login bonus because the 100-day streak is this. And it's like, we don't want that. Not everything has to be battle pass. Don't miss a day. Don't miss all your dailies kind of challenges. And it's just refreshing to see someone actually make a game and feel like it's out of passion rather than out of force the masses to never leave. They only get us.
There's another topic that you said at the very beginning that I want to touch on, where you said $30, that was kind of high. I'm going to make a very bold statement. That is not a high price for a video game. And I'm not even considering like of the scale that this game is. In 1995, a game called Earthbound came out. So you guys probably know about it, but some people out there might not. This is a very influential game made for the Super Nintendo way back when. It's one that I played a long time ago. You want to know what that game cost when it came out?
In 1995.
I like $100 or something.
$69.95.
Which in today's money is
$144.81.
That's a lot.
If games prices had followed inflation like they probably should have, given that the development team for that game was significantly smaller than the development teams for games today, the reason that we have all these battle passes and the malicious practices is because the consumers balked at any price increase beyond even $69.95 back then was probably pretty high, but then prices went down because people were like, it can't be over $50. And then every single nudge up after that was fought tooth and nail. And I'm not blaming anyone for this, but I am coming out swinging by saying $30 for a game is not a lot of money.
I will agree with you. The only reason I said it was a high price is because this is a free-to-play game that has a $30 price just to play it early.
I still think that's not terrible.
And 30 is the cheap one. It's 30, 60, and 100 are the three prices for the 3 early access packs.
Oh yeah, 100 would be kind of a lot for early access for a free game. But
I agree with you. I think games could cost more. Like, obviously, we're in a position of 1, we get to write off games on our taxes. 2, it's our job. 3, we can afford to play these games. So we have a lot of things going for us as far as paying for them. But I agree that games have not gone up much in price as to what they should. It's just a little weird to pay $30 to basically be a beta tester for a game that will come out and be free, because most of their monetization in Path of Exile, all of it, isn't even for pay to win stuff. It's quality of life stuff, like having some stash tabs that have different organization. That's like the big one as far as I know. And then the rest of it's purely cosmetic stuff. And that's been their monetary model that's done very well for them apparently over the years, because they've continued it even into Path of Exile 2.
Absolutely. It's all distractions and smoke screens.
I like your argument, Mark, but I think that comes, I think there's a caveat to what you're saying that I would require in order to agree with it.
Okay. All right.
And that would be, I would happily pay $80, $100, maybe more, depending on the game, for a game, if that meant I got the whole game and it was supported and like done. And it's a common talking point these days where people complain about companies just crap out something and expect to finish it after it's released. The other thing I don't care for that I think would make the pricing hard to bear is like my example, and it's all different now, but Destiny 2. When Destiny 2 came out, I was like, okay, it's a full AAA game. It's like a $60 game. Plus it's like $100 if you want to buy the first however many seasons of expansions or whatever, however they called it. But even if you bought the most expensive version of Destiny 2, you didn't get even everything in the first phase of life of that game. You still had to shell out for whatever the next DLC after the ones that you got with your original pack. And I get it takes money. They've made a ton of content for Destiny 2. It's become a whole other game. It's free to play now. It's a whole thing. But I have no reason to think, oh, if I spend $100 on this game, that means that'll be the full price I pay for it. It won't be. There will be a DLC. They'll do something where it's like, well, if you want all of the content for this game, you also have to buy this. So if it was a world where buying the game meant you own the game, and maybe if that means they make less DLC and they move on once they're done, but I still only have to pay the first price, I'm totally into that. And I think that would be more than fair. But it's all the combination of what happened with the prices and now all the malicious tactics the companies use to keep extracting money from players. It's like, it has to be a different universe, which is, you're arguing it should be, but I would live in that universe happily.
Here's a good example of that actually happening properly, because Amy started playing Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Now, if you know about that, it had an end of life, no longer going to make updates for the game. So what they did is they said, this is Pocket Camp complete. It's $10. You get everything that has ever happened in the game, all for $10. And I'm not sure if it used to be a free-to-play game or whatnot. Or
It was my mother-in-law's favorite video game in the world. She was very sad when they shut it down.
Yes, and so it used to have in-app purchases and stuff like that, but now it's just everything is unlocked. You can go through the entire game all in one go because they were like, we're not going to support it anymore, so here you go. And honestly, it's a better game this way. And I know it took time to develop things. So in a weird way, it's kind of like this is a pseudo early access where they like filter content over time. It's just all how you package it. That's marketing. But now that it's $10 and everything is there, it's a fantastic game. And so it's $10. That's a bargain for what this game can offer you if you're a really big fan of that type of game. So yeah, there's definitely ways that it could be done, but a complete game, so much more valuable than any other.
I want to offer up this nugget as well. It's hard to get a physical copy of a game that exists forever now. And there are times where you buy a game and you're at the mercy of whatever platform you bought it on, one, continuing to exist, and two, continuing to have the game on there.
Like Destiny.
You know, if you're going to put tons of money toward a game and then like maybe after 2 years, for whatever reason, it disappears off of a platform, or even 20 years, it's like, I want to go back and play this game I bought 20 years ago. I paid full price for it. Oh, that launcher no longer exists, or that game is no longer on Steam, or whatever have you. And that's another sad and scary thing about it is like, I've got my Sega games in a box where I can just go and pop in Lion King into a Sega Genesis at any time. But over the years, there are games that I'm sure we've added to our libraries. I can't think of a specific example, but the other day I was going to record, you guys know the game Granny? It's like a horror game.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So there was a Granny Together, like a multiplayer Granny game. And we all thought it was from the devs of Granny. I don't remember if it cost money, if it was free. Apparently it wasn't. I think someone like took Granny and modded it and then like put it on Steam. It might have been free. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to pick it up, but a group was wanting to record it. And I went to go get it on Steam and it was gone. Did not exist. And one of our friends had it. I don't remember if it was still in their library or also gone. But point being is like, that one's a little bit of like a shady, who knows what was going on thing. But in general, that can happen where you can buy a game for whatever price and then it can just vanish because you don't have a physical way of accessing it.
This is why emulation is so important, and allowing emulation to occur and keeping and collecting of ROMs, especially when something becomes abandonware, which is just like a software that is so old that no one really wants to maintain it. They kind of waive if they're not supporting it, they're not expecting to make any money off of it. So it's like those old types of games, emulation is a huge, huge thing. And that's just from passionate people that are making things. And I think it's better for the gaming companies to allow stuff like that to happen, especially for older catalogs. Because if they're not going to put it on their store and have in like modern hardware be able to emulate the older stuff, then why are they worried about anyone else emulating it? They're not trying to make money off of it. Other people are just doing it for the passion, and just because and it's free for everyone else, so no one's paying for those.
Yeah, Nintendo.
Interesting tidbit. I talked about this recently with some other people on a live stream or something. Recently, there was a ruling by the U.S. Copyright Office that denied a proposal to an exemption from DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act, that would have allowed libraries and archives, such as the Video Game History Foundation, to lend out ROMs of like abandoned media, abandoned video games in particular. There are exceptions that allow for things like that to exist for like historical purposes and archival purposes. And the Copyright Office specifically ruled video games don't deserve that exemption. There were several, at least, I think a couple online libraries where you could go and get ROMs of old games that you really can't even buy if you want to anymore. You can't do that anymore. They're shutting that down. So it was a big cut against preservation of media, because abandoned media and lost media is a huge problem in the world of video games, as it is in music, movies, TVs. But like video games is a relatively young media, and there are way less people who are concerned about preserving it at this point still. There are a lot of preservation efforts for old film reels and old music and forms of media and all that sort of stuff, because just older, they have had more time to develop that. There are currently games that are just falling off out of existence because you can't find physical copies. They're getting old and destroyed, and you know the number of organizations trying to preserve ROMs and their ability to share them with anyone is not substantial enough to prevent things from just being lost to time.
This is why people's right to privacy and whatever they want to do in their own homes is so important. You know, the adage of like, oh, if you got nothing to hide, what are you afraid of? But in reality, there are certain things no one can stop you if in the privacy of your own home, if you want to have and collect ROMs of these games and stuff like that. No one can stop you if you want to share it with a friend. It's just when it gets to the point of like distributing on a larger level, people really are like, oh, wait, hold on there. But who's gonna know?
I love the visual of like, they must be doing drug deals. There's a line of people outside this guy's house.
You want some ROMs?
You want to play Lion King?
And this is hypocrisy too on Nintendo's part, because didn't they discover on some Nintendo event that one of their gaming stations where they had like even like, I think it was relatively modern stuff, they were using an emulator with ROMs of their own games in the public display where you could go up and play games wherever it was. And it's like you're using the emulators that people put hard work into for your own benefit. So what's the deal?
Well, they made the emulators play their games, therefore they're their emulators, you know, the transitive property.
I mean, that actually is most of the time that is the argument. And they win. They win a lot. They win almost all the time. I think Nintendo's like 13-0 for lawsuits on this kind of stuff.
I can't believe the $10 attorney I can afford can't beat their team of $13 billion attorneys.
It's also because they'll drag you to Japan and do the court case in there, and Japan is a very strict...
I would drown. That's a long drag.
They're dragging you very fast, so you actually stay up. You kind of bounce on the ocean.
It's like water skiing. It's very fun until you get there. Then you're in court in your water skis and your wetsuit. It's terrible. It's a terrible look. It's part of the strategy.
My lawyer doesn't do international law.
All right, so the topic, we're going to move on to that. No one got the segue point. Oh, wait, yes, you did. You got it.
Oh.
I'm giving a point to the people at home for the segue point of today. In that, if you thought at home that this wasn't going anywhere, you're right, because I don't have an idea for this episode today. I got nothing. I'm an empty sack of shit host that doesn't have nothing. So all of you doubters out there, probably the listeners, if we're being perfectly honest about this.
It's definitely them, yeah.
It's definitely the listeners. All of you doubted me, and you're absolutely right. So the listeners get 1 point. And let me tell you, if the listeners end up winning this podcast, we have to delete it. I'm making that rule right now.
That's tricky. Can we keep making more, or do we have to delete it and stop?
We could pirate it. Someone could make an emulator for this podcast and then pirate the ROMs.
An emulator of a video player? I think they have those.
I don't think so. I think that's not true.
For legal reasons, you might not be able to. For anecdotal reasons, go for it.
Okay, so there were some things that I wanted to talk about, but it was just more like random things that I was trying to get into.
I think that's allowed.
One of the things that I've been interested more and more in, and what probably is, I think we talked about in a previous episode, was 3D printing, and I was just like wanting to talk about, hey, I've learned a bit about 3D printing, but there's nothing there. There's nothing substantial that I could possibly talk about. The Game Awards are occurring right now as we're speaking this, and there was some hype that Half-Life 3 was going to be announced there. There was other hype about like Elder Scrolls 6. I've never watched the Game Award once.
Oh, thank God. I thought it was just me.
I've never watched it either.
Okay, good. Can we talk openly and encourage everyone to leave comments and talk openly about how little we actually give a shit about the Game Awards in the nicest way possible? I appreciate that it's a nice industry event, and it seems like it's very well put on. Jeffrey, what's his name, seems very congenial as far as I've ever seen him online. As much as I don't give a single shit about the Oscars, except for that 5-minute clip where Will Smith slaps Chris Rock and it's very awkward, I could not be bothered to watch the Game Awards for even a moment ever. Have you guys ever sat and watched any of the?
No, but you know, they I don't know what the deal is. I'm sure money changes hands somewhere here, but game companies are using the Game Awards as a platform now to announce like their games and updates and DLCs and stuff.
Well, E3 doesn't exist now, so the Game Awards is the new hotness for dropping trailers and whatnot.
Why? That doesn't make sense. Like, I get it's a gaming event, it's a gaming trailer. An awards show should focus on the awards. I still won't care about it, but like that's what it should focus on.
Oh, I'm gonna give you a naive point for this. Whoa, stupid opinion, naive.
Everything is just so fucking greedy.
Greedy? Wait, what about that is greedy?
Because it's not about like, this will be cool, the viewers will love when we bundle these together. No, it's about getting eyes on one or the other that don't necessarily want them so that more money can change hands. That's why they do it.
So not everyone's excited about everything. I think if Half-Life 3 was announced at the Game Awards, even gamers who don't give a shit about Half-Life would probably be moderately excited about that just because of the memes. I think there is the legitimate community excitement around like, ooh, what's going to come? What are they going to announce at the Game Awards? Is it going to be the new Morrowind game? Is it going to be whatever? There's rumors. It is exciting. It is also a business, but people are excited about that. Just not me.
But they could also have an event called the Game Announcement Presentation, and then that could be the exciting.
But that's not a whole event. Who's going to that? It's got to be awards.
People that are excited about the game announcements and not the awards? I don't know.
I think if you're excited about one, there's a decent chance you're excited about the other, because I'm not excited about one or the other. So I assume it goes the other. I'm on the one end, and there's another end of the scale where both of those are very cool for you, for whomever.
I suppose, but like, I don't, it's just like whenever you're watching the Super Bowl, they're like, stay tuned at halftime for the Desperate Housewives trailer. And it's like, that's cool that that's happening. Also, I'm here for Super Bowl and or funny commercials, not show trailer for your TV station, but it's your TV station. Makes sense. Go for it.
Well, but the Super Bowl halftime show, that's not part of the Super Bowl if you're talking about it as a football game, but that's a thing that is as publicized as all of the rest of it. And everyone's like, ooh, who's performing? Ooh, who's the guest artist? Ooh.
That's fair.
How many sharks are there going to be? Ooh.
I don't know. I just, I don't like it. I don't like the bundle and force you to watch one event you don't care about in order to watch the other.
Wade doesn't like things. How many points is that worth?
We know he doesn't like things. There's no points for that because it's talked about every single one. But I will say the thing about the Game Awards that I do appreciate is that there are no other platforms for this kind of game stuff to rally around anymore. It was Bobby said it, there's no E3 anymore. There is nothing for it. And everyone knows award shows are money grabs. That's why people want to make them. That's why they exist in the first place. I don't like awards, but I do appreciate that there still is some place, because pomp and circumstance, I think, is dumb. I think in general terms is dumb. But gaming does not have any like legitimacy as an art form outside of these events that have it in a pomp and circumstance way, because money draws attention from other people that want to take it seriously. And so I believe the gaming is like a very legitimate art form in terms of storytelling and experience. And there's still to this day, you see tweets all the time where it's like, I can't believe a grown man plays video games. This guy's like in his 30s and still plays video games.
The average age of a gamer is like 35 or something now.
Yeah, exactly. And so legitimizing it in a way, even if it's a money grab and I don't want to watch it, I still appreciate that it exists and that it's taken, it has a certain amount of prestige to the event itself. And I think that's overall, it's not a big jump, but it's a net positive for gaming.
I have never thought about this, but you just made this connection for me, Mark. There are game conventions and the Game Awards is a thing. I think gaming needs more events, and it's hard to build credibility for this sort of thing, but needs more events that are like film festivals. Because you said gaming doesn't have like other places where it can take itself seriously, and there could be, and I feel like gaming would do great in the format of like a film festival where it's like games get submitted, they are sort of reviewed, or maybe there's panels, but then there are also awards like at Cannes or at Sundance or whatever, all these film festivals. If a movie wins an award at one of these festivals, that's not the same as winning an Oscar, but that is one of the avenues that films have where it's like it's building buzz. Maybe it's a smaller film, maybe it's a documentary, which is never going to be like a blockbuster, but that would be a thing where it's like the community can be part of it, right? You can attend. I'm just surprised that's not a thing, because there are huge gaming conventions and they're very fun, but why doesn't PAX like
a fire festival for games?
Yeah, Fire Festival is a great example. Thank you. Why doesn't PAX like have awards, or maybe they tried that and it didn't work? I feel like that'd be interesting.
Like a best of show kind of thing.
Yeah, like the PAX picks or some kind of award. The end of PAX is an award ceremony, and it's like, these are the coolest games that we had this year. Check it out. And here's 5 game trailers.
We're missing podcast festivals and awards.
Oh, there are.
And nobody wants that. There are those things. Nobody wants that.
shit.
I think what it comes down to is enough prestige around it, because there is a certain aspirational thing for filmmakers. It's romanticized. It is not exactly what people want it to be. And Hollywood's shine has dulled a long, long time ago. But still, people look at film festivals with a certain like inspirational glamour to it. Whereas like a convention, it's an everybody event. Everybody goes there, and some film festivals are like that. But there is still like this kind of like, oh, this is a film festival. You have to be really, really, really good to be in this one. It doesn't even matter if it's like a local one. It's a place where everyone loves status, and they want a hierarchy. But with gaming, it's kind of democratized in a way. It probably won't be forever. Whereas like, it can still be done by a one-person team. And films can be done by a one-person team, but it's incredibly difficult to do. And so when it comes to like a convention like that, I think what people really enjoy about it is like, here's Joe Schmo's game at booth 297, and I think like it there really isn't someone that's going to judge them because they're so diverse, and like it's the scales are so different, and the AAA titles are the only ones that actually go to the game award shows because they have money putting behind it and they want to have the prestige for it. But there's so little prestige to go around that there's not enough for a bunch of film festivals to occur. I don't know if I made a solid conclusional point there, but
no, I mean, obviously it doesn't exist, and I feel like it would if it was a feasible thing, because gaming has become very legitimized in that way in the last 5 years especially. But like, if it was a thing that should happen, I feel like it would be happening, because there would be money to make in it, honestly, and that would be appealing to whomever. The guy who made the Game Awards would also make the game festival film, whatever. So clearly there's a reason it doesn't exist, but it just...
Or it will now. Someone might have had that Leo DiCaprio moment where they're like pointing at the screen right now watching this.
And I get half the profits. Distractible claims...
I being Distractible team.
Well, you get half a point then.
Yeah, the royal I.
Okay, but I'm giving the other half to the listeners, so they're climbing, so just be careful.
Don't love it. Oh, Bob, we got to stop them.
Yeah, they're getting there.
Viewers, you get nothing, but listeners are dominating.
Yeah, the viewers are not in this race anymore. And like I said, I don't have a topic this week. I have some stories that, would probably be a ha-ha and a chuckle here and there.
Promise you, if you read one of your stories, it will give me an excellent jumping off point to talk about something that's just fascinating.
Okay.
100% guarantee that's for you. You're welcome.
And I will promise you, no matter what you say, I'll be thinking of Path of Exile right now.
Okay, good. All right.
And Shakira.
Path of Shakira. Shakira of Exile.
Shakira in Exile.
The path don't lie.
VA officials resign after Breitbart report of staff orgy at Tennessee Veterans Hospital. Have no idea the legitimacy of this, but...
VA? What is VA?
Veterans Affairs.
I was thinking Virginia.
The VA is the administration that handles veteran benefits, the VA hospitals, I believe also things like the GI Bill, where they pay for you to go to school, that sort of stuff. They resigned because it was discovered that they had a staff orgy.
Yeah, and again, I don't know about the validity of this story because the source, is not really one to trust very much, but several senior officials at the Mountain Home VA Medical Center have resigned as a sweeping internal investigation and congressional probe into allegations of widespread sexual misconduct intensifies. A bargaining unit by a medical employee at the facility has been accused of engaging... Wait, one? Oh, never mind. Of engaging in sexual relationships with at least 32 female colleagues. What?
At once?
Yeah, it's not an orgy unless at least a few of those were all at once, but okay.
The man, whose name has not been disclosed, and several of the women involved reportedly shared details of their encounters on an online forum within a government communication portal meant for VA operations and healthcare discussions. Investigators also uncovered allegations of an orgy involving at least 12 VA employees.
Oh, there you go.
Though it remains unclear whether the incident occurred on federal property or off-site. Additionally, 2 employees reportedly admitted to engaging in sexual activity on the grounds of a medical center. Now, most companies of any type would probably have stipulations in your employment contract for,
fraternization,
that's the term. Yes. And so those are probably enforceable in some way, shape, or form. But then again, you hear about workplace romances all the time because as you're an adult, you have so few places to interact with other people your age or, around there. So, the social interactions you have are limited to often work experiences because we work until we die.
This doesn't say they have any kind of relationship. They just fuck.
That's a good point. What's the definition of fraternization?
I don't actually know that.
I guess they do have to be concerned about disease or STDs and stuff, because you don't want a staph infection.
No, and that can happen. You can have STIs that just rifle on through everybody involved there.
I would love to see the email where it's like, hey, Ted, I got the document requested. Also, you come to the orgy tonight? And then like the business like signature at the bottom.
It feels like the thing that's not being said in that article. Oh, by the way, Mark, fraternization is the act of establishing intimate or familiar relationships between individuals or groups, particularly when those associations are considered inappropriate, unethical, or problematic in specific contexts.
Well, this doesn't seem problematic at all.
But it feels like the higher ups who resigned as a result of this knew about and or in some way condoned or did nothing to put an end to this happening. It seems like the one guy was kind of the heart of the problem. Like he's just a horn dog who can't keep it in his pants in a place of business where he's supposed to be working and not trying to pick up women to sleep with. Like this guy was like, "Hey, boss, I totally hooked up with that girl that I was telling you about," and the boss is like, "Nice, she's so hot," and that's fishy. Feels like they're not saying part of that.
How charismatic is this guy? That's the question.
Well, you got to think he's great at ice breaking, right? Because he's made friendships and more with all of these people. Plus, team bondage activities. This guy's top of the charts.
I can never tell if you do that on purpose or not.
Team bondage? I did. Yeah, that one was on purpose.
Oh, wait, I just want you to know, I gave you half a point for staph infections, but I gave a half a point to the listeners again because they had to hear it.
Damn it.
You gotta be careful with that, man.
Why does that go to them?
Because they had to hear it.
Hey, I heard it too.
Bobby, there's only half a point to go around.
There are smaller fractions, I'm just saying, but that's fine. That's fine.
But it's bigger numbers, and that doesn't make any sense to me. So I can't deal with that.
It is confusing.
Yeah, so it's this guy that's the issue. What if these women couldn't help but be swooned by his riz?
I get that in a workplace, if you were this man's manager and this came to light, you would kind of be like, wow, one, how did I not notice this? And two, that's clearly going to cause some problems. But if everyone who was involved was consenting, there's nothing in here that this was like using a position of authority to inappropriately pressure people to do things. Or it sounds like it was consensual between all the people who fraternized. It is perhaps unethical and definitely like not a thing you want in your organization. It doesn't honestly sound that bad to me. Maybe I'm just a weird freak and I should be more weirded out. It doesn't sound that bad to me.
Does it happen during work or at work?
It didn't say that. It didn't say anything about like, oh, they did it in patients' rooms or something. Like, it sounds like there's just a bunch of horny people that all work at this place. And this one dude just rizzed out of his fucking mind.
I would read more of the article, but it's one of those articles where like, please subscribe to be able to know more about this story. So it's like, it blurs down right after that.
Oh, wait. Do you know about the 12-foot ladder website, Mark?
The what?
12ft.io. You can put paywalled articles into it, and sometimes it will be able to get you an unpaywalled version of it. It's a 12-foot ladder to get you over that paywall.
That sounds pretty cool. But I like where this quote cuts off, because there's a quote at the very bottom of this that I can't read anymore, but it says, quote, "The fact that the culture would even allow this to happen in the first place is absolutely wild. And so we don't know if they're positive or negative about that. It's absolutely wild."
I know. the guy writing the article was like, "This is crazy, man. I want to go work at the VA. That's wild." And no one over here is trying to have orgies, to tell you that much.
Oh, man. All right, so I'll leave that mystery there. I'll save the 12-foot ladder for later, but I'll give you a point for telling me about that, because that would be very helpful.
It's a good website. It doesn't always work, but it's a good website. When it does work, it's very useful.
Well, I hated that. Like, I'm subscribed to like Apple News on my phone. I would use it more if the news app on the phone was in any way actually useful.
Oh, it's terrible. I'm surprised at how bad it is.
Yeah, I paid for it because I'm like, I want to know what the news is. And I'm like, well, as soon as I try to click on an article, it updates, and then I accidentally click on a different one, and then I can't find the article that was just there a second ago.
That happens so much.
Just please update after I look at it, because I have just enough time to read the article, be like, ooh, that looks doink. It literally, so many times I go to press it, it refreshes. It's infuriating. Anyway.
No, for how good most of Apple's default apps are, especially on iOS, there's a lot of like winners where it's like, you don't even, on Android, you might get a different calendar app or to-do list or something. Apple stuff is by and large pretty good. Has a lot of features. The news app, absolute letdown. And it's been the same since it launched. I go back to it periodically just to be like, should I do this for my news? No, I should not. It's still unusable and it's still stupid. And they think you can read magazines in it for some reason. Who wants that? Anyway, I'm pro orgies at work. Just gonna throw that out there.
Okay, who's anti-orgies? Raise your hand.
It's got to be Wade, I guess. I'm pro.
Do I have to be anti?
No, you don't. You don't have to be anti.
Oh, good.
But there was a point if you were.
If you don't mind being a nerd.
I don't want that point. I'd rather stand on my orgy principles.
The Distractible orgy will commence in 3.
Next episode title, The Orgy.
Hey, we can afford it now. Price of baby oil's gone down. Is that too soon?
Too soon for what? What do you mean? You should say, is it too late to make that joke? Because that's not even close to topical anymore.
Is that too soon or too late? It could go either way. All right, next episode's The Orgy. It's agreed.
All right, next episode's The Orgy. All right.
I like how Mark just let me walk away from my guarantee on that last news article. I mean, I did talk.
Oh, yeah, wait, no, hold on. Yeah, what was that?
I could have just said nothing and let that go. I'm so fascinated.
I think you got away with it already.
I mean, I talked. I said things. I'm pro orgy. I took a stance.
But you did say you had an article, and I want to know what it is now.
No, I said it was gonna be a jumping off point, and I was gonna have just a fantastic topic, and it would make the whole episode. I just made a very big promise about how much I was gonna have to say about. I gotta be honest. You delivered an article I wasn't ready for. You threw me off. I wasn't ready for VA because there's a lot of stuff I know about the VA that is very mixed and or negative, and I wasn't ready for orgies, which you'd think I would be ready for in this podcast. But
then we're gonna double it and pass it on to the next person. That doesn't mean you get it, Wade. That doesn't mean you get it.
Who else is here?
When I read this next one, which I think will be a short discussion, whoever has the greatest topic in the world after that will get 2 points.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Police illegally sell restricted weapons to supply crime. And this is where I'm actually going to use the 12-foot ladder because it won't even let me scroll a little bit.
That's all the words you get on that one.
Okay, let's try this. So this is, again, genius police work occurring in this police station where they are selling illegal weapons to supply crime. Adair, Iowa, which I don't know what happens in Iowa, but I know it ain't good.
You say Deer, Iowa or
Adair?
You don't know Adair?
It's Adair. Right over there.
Deer, Iowa.
They have a population of 794, so small town, right? A little bit of suspicions were raised when the 3-person police department asked regulators to buy 90 machine guns, including an M134 Gatling-style minigun capable of shooting up to 6,000 rounds of ammunition every minute. Right?
That's a lot of peacekeeping. That peace will be kept.
They just want to play real life cops and robbers.
That most police officers do, don't they? They really do.
So they asked regulators to approve their budget so they could make that purchase? God damn.
I want to get to this quote and then I'll let you guys run with it. So federal agents later discovered Adair's police chief, Bradley Went, was using his position to acquire weapons and sell them for personal profit. A jury convicted Went earlier this year of a conspiracy to defraud the United States, lying to federal law enforcement, and illegal possession of a machine gun. In response to this, Went said, quote, "If I'm guilty of this, every cop in the nation's going to jail." Went told CBS News just days before a federal judge sentenced him to 5 years in prison. So
5 years is all you get for that?
Yeah, apparently. I don't know how successful he was, but he must have been a little bit at least.
What, did he sell one pistol and he's like, I can't believe I got away with that. I better order a Gatling gun and 30 bars and 9 AR-15s.
How? I don't get, there's no subtlety ever with any of this. In anything where it's like people find a tiny bit of success, you'd think that they would just squeak through, just try to just really wring it out slowly by slowly, but no. 90 machine guns for a 3-person police department in an 800 population town.
I would love to see the paperwork because that sort of stuff, I'm sure there were forms or something, I'm sure there was a place where it was like, and what's this purchase weaponry going to be used for? And he was just like, oh, practice?
You guys have had 3 pistols in the last 10 years. You need a 90 machine gun upgrade.
Last year, you approved the purchase of a rack that actually holds 140 of these guns and 1 Gatling style minigun. And so we have that rack in the back room and it's empty. And so I'm like, well, we should probably, if we're not going to put it to use, what's the point? So we should probably get some guns to put on the rack, you know?
It was either sell it or, fill it. And also it's 140 guns, so we need 50 more.
But we already decommissioned the machine guns that were on it. We got to refill it.
Those things degrade fast.
No, they spoil on you. It's like avocados. You want to make sure you keep replenishing because you never know when it's going to go from ripe to, to brown mush.
Yeah, you can't.
3 months good frozen, only 2 months if not stored properly.
Best guns flash frozen right after they're caught.
Pull out your freezer bag of AK-47.
We had one of our 2 freezers in the basement go out. We had a whole batch of guns thaw on us. Really throw off the whole cycle. We need to get stocked back up, and we need a new freezer too.
Oh, these guns, they're organic. Oh, no pesticides here. Monsanto ain't got nothing on this. Non-GMO. Actually, I want the full GMO gun. I want the craziest.
I would love to know how much he got away with before this, though, because this to me reads like this is not the first time he did it, and this was the one where he's like, well, no one said a damn thing. I've been doing this for years. At this point, no one's even ever asked me a question. Let's just raise the stakes a little bit, and then I'll make more money all at once. It'll just be easier.
70 or less machine guns, nobody asks a question. As soon as you go over 71. That's when the investigations come in.
Buried in the court documents is like, yeah, Mr. Went had been requesting 68 rifles per year for the last 7 years. And regulators were like, that's about right for 3 police officers. But when he asked for 90 and a minigun, they were like, oh, look, I love guns as much as the next guy, but that's a lot of arms for 3 guys.
So apparently, I don't know how much they were doing it there, but there were 58 cases that CBS News identified where law enforcement officers were criminally charged with illegally selling their weapons. Of those 58, 56 either admitted guilt or were convicted. And then 2 denied wrongdoing and weren't convicted or whatever. So 56 out of the 58 of that were found were guaranteed to have these guns sold to other places. But that doesn't speak to how many nationwide has occurred, but 26,000 guns found from American crime scenes were traced back to government agencies between the years of 2017 and 2021.
It seems like a lot of guns. That feels like a large. I will say, this is going to sound like I'm making an excuse, and I'm not. I do think, I wonder how much of this comes from a place of knowing how our government stuff works a little bit, especially federal funding. I do know that in a lot of places, in a lot of like budget concerns, if they give you a budget for something, like let's say there's a federal grant or something for a police department, and they're like, okay, you could spend $25,000 and we'll give that to you, but you have to, tell us what you bought and track everything. And then if you spend $22,000 of that budget and you leave extra, the next year they'll be like, well, you only need $22,000, right? Okay, we'll just shrink that down a little bit. There's this weird pressure in governmental settings where it's like, you better not fucking go over the budget by a single penny. But every little bit that you're under that number is also a penalty, because we're just going to take that away and assume you don't need that money anymore. We'll just take that back. And so there's like, it's a weird game of like, what can we buy? It probably shouldn't be guns. The decision making in the what they bought is, I think, the problem. But like, I get that there's probably a lot. That's why a lot of police departments, it's like, well, we just bought 2 new cruisers last year and we barely use them, but we have this extra money, so I guess we're getting another new Ford Explorer or something, because if we don't spend it, we lose it. We might as well just have a car, I guess. Or so. It's a weird pressure.
I didn't even think of that because that is something that I've heard of before. And this comes down to where government records and keeping track of everything is very difficult because the country is very big. And this is a problem. And this is where probably, this is a slippery slope for me to say, but this is where, like, more intelligent systems, I'm not saying AI specifically, but if there was way to better categorize and understand what each individual department was doing, then budgetary tracking could happen. But it's just so unfeasible because of how big it is. And you would need as many people as are in those industries just to keep track of what they're all doing. I don't know how the IRS knows everything that they know.
They don't. They don't know anything except for the people that they're like, well, you're in trouble. We're going to get you. Why pick you? And then they just target their 5 agents they have available on that one.
70 plus guns. Red flag goes off in their email inbox.
Eeny, meeny, miny, fire!
I like to think it's like working in the medical industry. Like the drug companies would come and like take doctors and stuff out to lunches, and they give like samples of their products and stuff. It's like the NRA is going to different police stations, like whining and dining, like, oh, you want some samples? And it's just like a box of machine guns.
I think that is actually illegal even in this country, but they 100% take police officers out to lunch and are like, oh, here's a laser sight for your service pistol. Oh, here's some high capacity magazine. You want to try these out? We got a bunch of these over in the truck. They absolutely, anything that's technically legal, they totally do that, I'm sure, because that happens across industries, and the gun industry is just a very, very large industry in this country.
I mean, what's the statistic? How many guns to the population in America? Like, how many guns?
Isn't it like each person could have like 100 guns or something ridiculous?
There are 393 million guns estimated in the United States, which is more than enough for one for every gun. 120 guns for every 100 Americans. So everyone gets also 0.2 of another gun after they get assigned their first gun.
But that includes children too. That includes every American, doesn't it?
They get a piece of a gun as they grow up. Every year they get another piece so that by the time they're an adult, they can assemble.
All right, here's your receiver. All right.
It's like Hogwarts, the gun chooses the American.
A kid walks into a gun shop and there's just a crazy old guy who's just like, let's try this one. Click, hands it to the kid, and the kid's just like, oh, bang, bang, bang. The guy's like, nope, not that one, not that one.
I shouldn't laugh because this is probably closer to the mark than I want it to be.
For anyone outside of America, this is exactly how it works. We're all assigned a gun at birth.
Doctor, my baby's out of ammo. I need a G-section.
All right, that's enough of that topic. Who's got the transition? Who's got the ultimate other topic?
The listeners. Probably.
What? What are we doing here?
I'm giving up, man.
Calm down.
Oh, okay. Do you have it?
Oh, well, I was thinking.
Oh, I'll distract some more. Could be the viewers. I mean, the viewers have really not been doing a whole lot, so maybe they have the transition.
You know what the second most highest country of gun ownership is? Which I didn't think of this.
I actually don't. France?
France is like 11th on the list.
Guns. Who loves guns? I feel like Aussies love guns, but I know that they have some actually pretty strict gun regulations, and that they had a whole buyback program that happened a while ago. So
yeah, they don't have any guns in Australia. They're all like knives and stuff now. Ottoman Empire,
the Vatican City.
every priest has a gun.
God, clearly heaven.
By number, by numerical, just pure guns, it's India. India has the second most, 71 million, but their per population is very low. The second per population is Saudi Arabia. Actually, it's the Falkland Islands.
The Falkland Islands.
The Falkland Islands.
The Falkland Islands got them all.
No. And then actually Canada's pretty high up there, which makes sense.
Canada makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They act like they're all nice, and the things they say that I can't think of stereotypically, damn them.
Yeah, damn those people. Editors, have him canceled by putting in the worst country he could say.
Worst country? It's not like
Penis land.
Can't believe this guy.
All right, Bob, do you have a transition?
I saw a hilarious news article, and it's because Australia came up. I don't know if this is complete Grand Slam, but I'm teeing it up here. Wade might have to bring it home. It's actually not a news article. This is a first source. It was a post on social media. There was a woman who I believe is Australian, possibly British. I don't remember. She looks kind of like Ray Gunn, the infamous Australian breakdancer from the Olympics. And she was in the process of writing and producing a musical about her story of going to the Olympics and being the breakdancer and representing Australia. I think it was meant to be funny. I think it was a comedic thing. So it was not potentially going to make Ray Gunn look very good. He was making light of it, which I think a lot of people made a lot of jokes, probably pretty fairly. But anyway, this woman was working on this, and it was a whole thing. And like this was like it was going to happen. She was just working on finishing it up, and so that it could start to be performed. And apparently, Ray Gunn's lawyers sent a cease and desist and or potentially filed a lawsuit claiming that this musical was going to be damaging to her brand and could not be performed, and also that the dancer from Australia, Ray Gunn, I can't remember her real names, unfortunately, owns the kangaroo breakdance move that she did. And so the woman who was making the satirical musical would be violating like trademark because that dance is wholly owned by the original dancer who did it in the Olympics. And so that musical apparently is no longer going to exist. There were a lot of comments from people in America who were like, "Hey, move it over here, move the production to America. We have copyright laws that allow protection in cases of parody," which is this is that exact kind of thing. It's going to be a funny parody of the story. But apparently Ray Gunn owns the kangaroo dance and also is afraid that musical is going to be really damaging to her otherwise impeccable reputation. Also, my favorite moment from the social media post that I saw, the woman who posted it was a video. What she said that the musical would be damaging to her reputation. She was like, she doesn't need me. I couldn't damage it any more than it is. Anyway, and she like moved on, but it's sad and it's bullshit. I mean, obviously Ray Gunn doesn't want that to happen because it's funny and she doesn't want people laughing at her. But that's just how the world works. You're allowed to make jokes about funny shit. You're going to go and do breakdances that are objectively outside of the norm for how breakdancing looked by everyone else who did it at the Olympics. And I think arguably objectively funny in that she was Australian and was clearly doing a kangaroo dance. And that's funny. How could you possibly think that people are not going to make jokes about that? How could you possibly think that you could stop them with lawyers? Aside from the fact that she successfully did, because this woman has no money or ability to defend herself, and so she's like, I'm just going to not do it because I can't afford to go to court over this or whatever. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Well, did you see the musical? It's supposed to be cast. It was starring Bryan Cranston. It was going to be called Breaking Sad.
That's another point to the listeners,
dude. I knew before you even said the punchline that was going to be a listener point because of the smile on your face.
Why can't I be happy?
Well, okay, so I have another, Wade, you're not the only one here because I wrote down +2 for Ray Gun play, and then in parentheses I put play gun. So I have to give another point to the listeners for hearing that.
Mark, no, you're doing this to us.
I know, but it's all over now. So we just need to read the points, and wherever the chips have fallen, they're falling right there. So that was a great episode. Well done. You really filled in the void of me not having any idea of what we're doing at all. Bob, you knew what Distractible was. I forgot to ask what this podcast was to Wade.
Oh, right.
But we'll have to get to that next episode. You lost a point for being first. You got a point for being sick, but that's the last point. You can never get a point again for being sick. You got a caveat point. You got a then you're in court point for the Japan dragging. You got half a point of profits, which is pretty good. In the long run, that's going to earn you a lot. 12 ladders, great suggestion. And then you got the +2 for Ray Gun, play gun. Wait! You got a water point. You got Diablo 2 point. You lost a point for cheating, and I don't remember why.
No, he cheated. You
got a nugget point. You got a naive point. You got +0.5 point for staph infections. You got +1 for farm fresh guns, which I don't think is what you said, but it was.
That's not what he said at all.
I think I did, word for word.
The listeners.
Oh, God.
They got a point for nothing. They have 1 point in profits that are shared with Bob. They got 0.5 point for staph defections, which is shared with Wade. They got a breaking sad point and a play gun point.
Wait, what did you breaking sad point?
Which is 4 points for the listeners. Now, if you were counting before.
I don't think we have to end the podcast. I think we're good.
Wade, you got 4.5 points.
Take that, listeners!
But Bob, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5, 6.5!
Okay.
All right.
That brings him up to the winning score. Congratulations, Bob.
If I had made as many dad jokes as Wade did, we would just ended the episode right there, cut to black, delete it all, done forever.
I still beat them, for the record.
That's the narrowest win to the listeners that we've had on the show yet.
Hey, the Chiefs are doing it every game. Why can't I?
Don't talk about Patrick Mahomes to me. Collinsworth does it enough for everybody. Oof. Mark knows what I'm talking about.
I definitely do. Yes, I do. Yes. Winner speech, Bob. Congratulations.
It's been a hot minute since I won. I'm excited. It feels good. I'd forgotten how good it feels to come out on top. Even though I worked hard and I earned it, it still feels good to be recognized for it, you know? I work hard every episode. You're not going to win them all, but it's rewarding when it pays off. And also, to the listeners, you almost had them. I believe in you. Next time I win, I want the listeners right up underneath me in second place there so we can all look down on Wade together. Maybe the viewers will even do it someday. Maybe we'll push Wade off the podium. Wouldn't that be a world to live in? Anyway, thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay. Wade, are you going to take that standing down? Standing up? Sitting down?
I will, boldly. But also, I was going to make a musical about my failures in this episode and my terrible jokes, but I decided to sue myself to stop myself from making the musical.
All right, go ahead. Start the musical. And editors, hit the music.
Da-da-ba-da-ba-ba. I'm not...
Editors.
All right. But yeah, I'm suing myself. I can no longer make this musical. I decided it would ruin my brand name. It was going to be called Breaking Dad for my dad jokes.
Okay, there we go. That's for you, buddy.
I don't have a song, and this immediately. Woo!
Oh, come on. You can sing. You can
man.
improv sing. We all know you can.
I can, but I just lost and I don't wanna. You know, if I had won, I would have given you all the musical performance of a lifetime.
I don't believe you.
You're probably right.
I could still make you the winner. No, I don't think I can at this
You
point.
can't. Bob would have so many flags thrown that we might as well be a United Nations. No, an emissary. No, an embassy. What's the place that has all the flags?
I think you got it right the first time if you were going for the place with all the flags, not gonna lie.
All right, Six Flags. Come to the theme park.
We were have so many flags, we're either gonna be the UN or Six Flags.
So we'll see you at Six Flags in the next episode. Thank you everybody so much for watching and especially for listening. Wink. I shouldn't have made that wink audible.
Well, then the listeners wouldn't have got it. It was for them.
Yeah, sure it was. Yeah, definitely.
Because we love listeners.
All right, follow the podcast or else. Thank you. Podcast out. Oh, follow these guys. I said it. It's too late. Damn it.